2 years before retirement is where most people accidentally lose the game. Not because they didn't save enough, because they make the wrong moves at the exact moment risk matters most. A market drop, a bad tax decision, a paid-off house but no cash flow, one overlooked healthcare expense. Suddenly, a retirement that looks safe on paper starts leaking money from every direction. And here's the uncomfortable part. The final 24 months before retirement often matter more than the previous 20 years of investing combined. This is the transition phase nobody talks about. Not accumulation, distribution, a completely different skill set. And the people who understand this shift don't just retire earlier, they retire calmer, more flexible, more protected. The next few minutes break down exactly what to do right now if retirement is only 2 years away. Most people think retirement is a finish line. It's actually a business acquisition. Overnight, your paycheck disappears and your portfolio becomes the employee replacing you. That changes everything. Imagine walking into retirement with $1 million invested. Sounds safe. But if the market drops 25% during your first year, you're suddenly at $750,000 while also withdrawing income. That combination creates something called sequence of returns risk, and it quietly destroys retirements. Two retirees can average the exact same long-term market return and end up with completely different outcomes depending on when losses happen. That's why the next 2 years aren't about maximizing gains. They're about engineering survival and stability before the paycheck shuts off forever. The first thing smart retirees do is build a retirement runway. Think of it like an airplane preparing to land. You don't cut the engine midair and hope for the best. You create a controlled descent. That means calculating your actual retirement number honestly, not fantasy numbers. Start with your monthly expenses right now, then separate them into survival expenses and lifestyle expenses: housing, insurance, food, utilities, taxes, healthcare. Then layer in travel, hobbies, gifts, entertainment. Most people underestimate retirement spending by ignoring inflation and healthcare. A couple retiring today may spend over $300,000 on healthcare during retirement alone. Suddenly, retirement becomes less emotional and more mathematical. That's exactly where clarity starts. Now comes the part almost nobody does early enough: stress testing your retirement. Instead of asking, "Can I retire?" ask, "Can my retirement survive bad timing?" Run ugly scenarios. What if the market falls 30% during year one? What if inflation stays high for 5 years? What if you need long-term care? What if Social Security gets delayed? Wealthy retirees think in systems, not optimism. One simple framework helps here: the 3-bucket strategy. Bucket 1 holds 1 to 3 years of cash and short-term reserves. Bucket 2 contains stable income-producing investments. Bucket 3 holds long-term growth assets. Suddenly, you're not forced to sell stocks during crashes just to pay your electric bill. That changes the emotional game completely. One of the biggest retirement mistakes happens quietly inside taxes. People spend decades obsessing over investment returns while ignoring tax structure. But in retirement, taxes become one of the largest expenses you control. Imagine 2 retirees each withdrawing $80,000 annually. One keeps $72,000 after taxes, the other keeps $60,000. Same portfolio, completely different retirement lifestyle. That's why the final 2 years are critical for Roth conversions, capital gains planning, and withdrawal sequencing. Sometimes converting portions of traditional IRAs into Roth accounts before required minimum distributions begin can save hundreds of thousands over retirement, especially if future tax rates rise. Retirement planning isn't just investing anymore. It becomes tax engineering. Now let's talk debt. Retirement exposes weak cash flow instantly. A mortgage that felt manageable during working years suddenly feels heavy without employment income. That doesn't automatically mean pay everything off immediately. This is where math beats emotion. If your mortgage rate is 2.8%, aggressively paying it off might not be optimal when treasury yields or dividend income exceed that rate. But high-interest debt, different story. Credit cards, personal loans, variable rate debt, those become retirement poison. Every dollar going toward interest is a dollar not funding freedom. The goal isn't necessarily being debt-free, it's being payment flexible. Retirees with low fixed obligations gain something incredibly valuable: optionality during economic uncertainty. Healthcare becomes the silent budget killer most people massively underestimate. A healthy 58-year-old can look financially prepared and still get crushed by insurance gaps, prescription costs, or long-term care. Medicare doesn't cover everything. Dental, vision, hearing, supplemental insurance, co-pays, they add up fast. Then there's the timing issue. Retiring before Medicare eligibility can create an expensive insurance bridge. Some couples delay retirement solely because healthcare premiums would exceed $2,000 monthly privately. That's why smart retirees model healthcare separately from normal expenses. They create dedicated reserves specifically for medical uncertainty, because one unexpected diagnosis shouldn't destroy decades of disciplined saving. Here's where retirement planning gets surprisingly psychological. Many people prepare financially, but never mentally. They underestimate how much identity is tied to work. Suddenly the structure disappears, meetings disappear, purpose disappears, and within months, some retirees feel lost, despite having money. Studies repeatedly show retirement satisfaction depends heavily on routine, social connection, and purpose, not just net worth. That's why the best retirees design their calendar before retirement starts. Volunteering, consulting, hobbies, fitness, travel, mentorship, part-time income streams. Retirement works best when you're retiring to something, not just from something. Money protects your lifestyle. Purpose protects your mind. Now let's talk investments, because this is where fear causes terrible decisions. 2 years before retirement does not mean dumping everything into cash. That's another hidden risk. Inflation slowly erodes purchasing power for decades. Retirements can easily last 25 to 35 years now, meaning your portfolio still needs growth. The key is balance. Imagine retirement like a football team. You need defense and offense simultaneously. Defensive assets protect near-term spending. Growth assets protect future purchasing power. Historically, portfolios that became too conservative too early often failed because inflation quietly outpaced returns. Retirement isn't about avoiding all risk. It's about managing the right risks intelligently. Social Security decisions alone can change lifetime income by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yet many people claim benefits emotionally instead of strategically. Claiming at 62 permanently reduces monthly benefits. Waiting until 70 dramatically increases them. For some couples, coordinating spousal benefits becomes one of the highest return financial decisions available. Imagine delaying benefits increases guaranteed inflation-adjusted income by roughly 8% annually after full retirement age. Few investments offer that kind of guaranteed return, but timing depends on health, life expectancy, cash reserves, and family situation. This is why retirement planning isn't generic. The same decision that's brilliant for one person can be financially disastrous for another. A surprising number of retirees become asset-rich and cash-poor. They own valuable homes but struggle with monthly liquidity. This becomes especially dangerous during inflation spikes or emergencies. That's why liquidity matters enormously during the final 2 years before retirement. Smart retirees often increase emergency reserves before leaving work, not after. Cash creates breathing room. Breathing room creates better decisions. Imagine facing a market crash with 2 years of spending already set aside. You're calm while others panic sell investments at the worst possible time. Liquidity isn't wasted money, it's psychological leverage. And in retirement, emotional stability often becomes a financial advantage. One powerful but overlooked strategy is creating multiple income streams before retirement begins. Even small income sources dramatically reduce portfolio pressure. A retiree earning just $1,500 monthly from consulting, rentals, digital products, or part-time work reduces annual portfolio withdrawals by $18,000. Over a decade, that difference compounds massively. Suddenly, portfolios last longer, taxes decrease, and flexibility increases. This is why many modern retirees no longer pursue full-stop retirement. They pursue phased retirement, less stress, more freedom. Some of the happiest retirees still earn income, not because they must, but because it keeps them engaged while protecting financial longevity at the same time. Now comes an uncomfortable truth most people avoid. Helping adult children financially can quietly derail retirement. Parents often sacrifice retirement security to solve temporary problems for others. Down payments, debt bailouts, supporting lifestyles they themselves can barely sustain. But retirement math is brutal. Every $100,000 removed from a portfolio potentially represents thousands annually in lost retirement income. That doesn't mean never helping family. It means helping strategically without destroying your own future. The harsh reality is this: Financially unstable retirees often become dependent on the same children they tried to rescue. Protecting your retirement first may ultimately protect your family too. Another critical move before retirement: simulate retirement while still employed. This single tactic exposes weaknesses early. Practice living on your projected retirement income for 6 months. Seriously, if your future retirement budget says $6,000 monthly, start living on it now while your paycheck still exists. The difference goes into savings. This creates 3 powerful benefits instantly. First, you test whether your assumptions are realistic. Second, you increase reserves before retiring. Third, you emotionally adjust to spending changes gradually instead of abruptly. It's basically a financial flight simulator, much safer to discover problems while you still have employment income than after it disappears permanently. Estate planning suddenly becomes urgent in the final years before retirement. Not because you expect disaster, because complexity increases. Beneficiaries, trusts, medical directives, powers of attorney, tax implications, digital assets. Most people delay this because it feels uncomfortable, but failing to organize it creates chaos precisely when families are emotionally overwhelmed. And this isn't just about wealthy families. Even middle-class retirees often leave behind confusion that costs relatives time, money, and legal stress. Organized retirees create systems, password lists, account summaries, insurance details, clear instructions. The goal isn't preparing for death, it's protecting the people you care about from unnecessary financial disorder. One hidden retirement risk almost nobody discusses is inflation lifestyle creep. Many retirees enter retirement spending aggressively during the first decade while they're healthiest and most active. More travel, more dining, more experiences. That sounds great until inflation compounds underneath it for years. A lifestyle costing $80,000 today may require well over $120,000 later depending on inflation rates. This is why dynamic withdrawal strategies matter. Smart retirees adjust spending during strong market years and tighten temporarily during downturns. Flexibility becomes a superpower. Rigid retirement plans often fail because real life refuses to stay predictable for 30 straight years. At this point, a pattern should be obvious. Successful retirement isn't about one giant decision. It's about removing hidden vulnerabilities before they become emergencies. Taxes, healthcare, liquidity, income timing, debt structure, emotional readiness, inflation, market risk, and people who struggle in retirement usually ignored multiple small cracks that later combined into one giant problem. Meanwhile, prepared retirees create margin everywhere. Margin in cash flow, margin in taxes, margin in spending, margin in emotional resilience. That's why 2 years before retirement is such a critical window. You still have income, time, and flexibility to fix problems before they become permanent. Retirement isn't really about stopping work. It's about gaining control over your time without losing control over your finances. And the final 2 years before retirement are where that freedom is either strengthened or quietly sabotaged. The smartest retirees don't chase perfect market timing or magical investments. They build resilient systems that survive uncertainty. They test their plans, reduce fragility, increase flexibility, protect cash flow, create purpose beyond work, and most importantly, they prepare before retirement begins, not after problems appear. Because retirement rewards preparation more than optimism. The people who thrive aren't necessarily the richest. They're usually the ones who saw the risks early and acted while they still had time. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe.